In the quiet village of Nkokonjeru, where the red earth met the green hills and time moved with the sun, there lived a man named Kato. He was a skilled builder, known for shaping strong homes out of mud and stone. People respected him, but they also feared his silence. Kato was not the kind of man who laughed easily or forgot an insult. His pride was heavy, like the hammer he carried each day. Kato's wife, Amara, was the opposite. Gentle, warm-hearted, and always with a word of kindness for the elders and children. She sold fruits in the village square, helped women in childbirth, and often walked to the river to gather herbs or wash clothes. To many, she was the soft voice of the household. But to Kato, her lightness sometimes felt like a threat, something he could not control. One afternoon, as Kato returned from the nearby hills where he was helping to build a grain storehouse, he overheard two women at the market whispering. They didn't see him behind the banana stall. She was at the river again, not alone, one said. With that herbalist, Juma, said the other. That one who smells of roots and secrets. Kato paused. His heart didn't beat faster, but his jaw clenched. He didn't say a word. Just walked on, slow and steady, as if he hadn't heard. But the words had already begun to settle in his chest like stones in a basket. That evening, Kato sat at the edge of their compound sharpening his tools while Amara cooked millet inside. She hummed a song he remembered from their early years. But he didn't join in. He just watched the knife scrape against the stone. The next few days, he began to watch her. Quietly. He left home later than usual, returned earlier than she expected. He pretended to sleep when she rose before dawn. And on the fourth day, he followed her. She walked down the narrow path through the cassava fields, past the well, and toward the river. She carried a small cloth bag. When she reached the water, she wasn't alone. Juma was there, tall, dark-skinned, his beard braided with cowrie shells. He greeted her respectfully, and they sat on a rock beneath the fig tree. Kato crouched behind a bush. He couldn't hear every word, but he saw something pass from Amara's hands to Juma's, or maybe the other way around. A small bundle, wrapped in banana fiber. His eyes narrowed. His breath grew heavy. When Amara returned home that evening, Kato asked no questions. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't mention the river or Juma. But something had shifted in his gaze. It was no longer soft, nor even hard, it was hollow. Like a termite mound long abandoned. That night, as Amara slept, Kato sat by the fire pit, staring into the dying flames. In his mind, the whispers repeated themselves, growing louder with each breath. She was not alone. Not alone. The next morning, the air in the house felt heavier. The birds still sang, the goats still bleated, but there was a silence between Kato and Amara that even the wind dared not disturb. Amara prepared breakfast like always, millet porridge with crushed groundnuts and honey. She placed the bowl in front of Kato and sat across from him, wiping her hands on her wrapper. Her eyes met his, but his remained fixed on the steaming bowl. Kato, she said gently, you've hardly spoken these past few days. Is something troubling you? He didn't answer right away. He took a slow sip of the porridge, then placed the calabash back on the mat. I saw you, he said finally, voice flat. Amara blinked. Saw me? At the river. With him. Her lips parted in confusion. Then realization flickered in her eyes. You mean Juma? Kato's jaw tightened. You say his name so freely. He's an herbalist. I was seeking help for you, your chest pains. I never told you because you don't believe in herbs. Don't twist the truth, he snapped, slapping the calabash aside. The porridge spilled across the mat like a wound. Do you think I'm a fool? Amara flinched but held her ground. I've never shamed you, Kato. I swear it on my mother's grave. Then what were you exchanging? I saw you pass something to him. It was dried bitter leaf and palm bark. He gave it to me for a tonic. I even paid him with cassava flour. That was all. But Kato's ears were no longer listening. His mind had already shaped its own story, one born not of truth, but of pride, fear, and shame. In the eyes of the village, being cheated on was a wound a man never recovered from. It was better, some said, to lose a cow than to lose face. He stood up, towering over her. From today, you do not leave this house unless I say so. Amara's eyes widened. You can't, I can and I will. His voice thundered like a coming storm. You want to speak with other men? Then let them feed you, let them shelter you. I've done nothing wrong, she cried, standing now too. You believe gossip over your own wife? But her words bounced off a wall he'd already built. The Kato who once loved her laughter had disappeared into his own silence. All that remained was a man choking on wounded pride. Days passed. Kato locked the gate behind him when he went to work. He left Amara no money, no charcoal, not even soap. She boiled water over firewood and scraped together meals from dried yams she'd hidden behind the granary. She waited. Hoped his anger would cool. But Kato had already begun to make plans. He went to a traveling trader and bought a small pouch of ekasubi, a root known to induce deep sleep when steeped in hot water. It was rarely used, but he knew its power. The old men had spoken of it in hushed tones after funerals. That evening, he returned home early and spoke to her softly, for the first time in weeks. Amara, he said, I've been thinking. Maybe I overreacted. Let's share tea tonight. She looked at him with wary relief. You mean it? He nodded, watching her eyes. You're still my wife. Let's forget the past. He made the tea himself. As Amara sipped, her limbs grew heavy. Her words slowed. She asked him what was in it, but her tongue betrayed her. The last thing she saw was Kato's shadow stretching across the wall as her head tilted sideways on the mat. Night had settled over Nkokonjeru like a heavy cloak, and not even the dogs barked. The moon was veiled behind thick clouds, and the stars had hidden themselves, as though unwilling to witness what was about to happen. Kato stood silently in the middle of his compound, staring at the lifeless form of Amara curled on the mat. Her chest still rose and fell faintly, but her body was limp, her breath shallow. The sleeping root had done its work. He moved slowly, without rush, as if every step had been rehearsed in his mind long before the act. He wrapped her carefully in a sheet, one she had sewn herself, with bright yellow and red patterns she loved. As he tied the corners and hoisted her over his shoulder, a strange stillness fell over him. He did not tremble. He did not hesitate. What he was doing, he told himself, was justice. Punishment. And justice did not weep. The forest lay on the edge of the village, past the millet fields and the old termite mounds that children feared at dusk. Kato walked the narrow path with slow, deliberate steps, the weight of his wife across his back like a sack of forgotten grain. Crickets chirped around him, and an owl called once from high above, but otherwise, the night remained hushed, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. He reached a place few visited, a clearing choked with vines and dry roots, where a massive anthill had collapsed years ago, leaving a shallow pit in the earth. Kato had chosen it days ago. It was dry, hidden, and quiet. He dropped to his knees and began to dig with his hands, scooping away soil, stone, and dead leaves. His fingernails cracked, his knuckles bled, but he did not stop. The hole did not need to be deep, just enough to cover her. He did not plan for mourning or remembrance. This was not a burial of sorrow, it was a burial of shame. When the pit was ready, he unwrapped Amara gently. Her face was peaceful, her lips slightly parted. A fly buzzed near her ear, but she did not stir. Kato looked at her for a long time. His mind flickered with memories, her laughter on the day they were married, the way she used to call his name when she was happy, how she rubbed shea butter into his aching hands after long work days. For a moment, something broke in him, but it was fleeting. He laid her in the earth and began to cover her. One handful of dirt, then another. The soil thudded softly against her body, muffled by the cloth. Soon, her face was gone. Then her chest. Then her legs. When the pit was filled, he packed it down with the flat of his palms, leaving no sign of a grave. Just earth, like it had always been. He sat back, breathing hard. His clothes were soaked in sweat. His hands were coated in dirt and blood. But still, the night remained quiet. No lightning struck. No voice cried from the trees. For a moment, Kato felt vindicated. The ancestors, it seemed, had accepted his offering. He walked back to the village alone, washed his hands in silence, and slept soundly for the first time in weeks. The next morning, he told the neighbors that Amara had run away with the herbalist. He said he had confronted her, and she had confessed. Then she left in shame, he claimed, carrying nothing but her pride and betrayal. The villagers were stunned, but few asked questions. Shame was a woman's burden, they believed. If she had truly dishonored her husband, perhaps it was better that she vanished. Kato played the role of the wounded husband well, stern, quiet, dignified in sorrow. But deep beneath the earth, a breath stirred where there should have been none. And in the days to come, the wind would begin to whisper again. 3 nights passed after Amara's disappearance, and the village began to settle back into its slow rhythm. The women at the market stopped whispering. The elders resumed their games beneath the baobab tree. Life moved on, as it always did in Nkokonjeru. But inside Kato's compound, something had changed. The silence that once brought him peace now pressed against his ears. The corners of his home felt colder. The smell of ash and soap lingered longer than it should. The first sign came quietly. Kato awoke in the middle of the night to a faint sound, soft tapping, like fingers brushing against the wall. He sat up, heart thudding, but the sound vanished. He told himself it was a lizard or maybe the wind. But the next night, it returned, this time louder, more deliberate. 3 knocks. A pause. Then 3 more. On the 4th night, he dreamt. In the dream, he was back in the forest, standing over the grave. But the earth was soft again, freshly turned. A voice behind him whispered, "You left me too shallow." He turned and saw Amara standing beneath the fig tree, her eyes open wide, her dress covered in soil. She didn't speak again. She simply watched him silently, endlessly, until he woke drenched in sweat, gasping for air. The next day, the animals in his compound began to act strangely. The chickens refused to go near the back wall where Amara once washed clothes. The goat bleated non-stop for hours until it finally broke its rope and ran into the bush. Even the neighbor's dog, a bold creature that often slept by Kato's door, now barked and whimpered whenever it neared the gate. At first, Kato kept to himself. But by the end of the week, others began to notice. Children spoke of a woman walking near the riverbanks at night barefoot, wrapped in a white cloth, saying nothing. Some claimed she had no shadow. Others said she vanished the moment you called out. A widow named Mama Luyiga, known for her sharp tongue and sharper senses, told the elders she had seen Amara's figure beside the well just before dawn. She stood still, the old woman said. Not fetching water. Just watching. The elders, unsettled, summoned Kato. He arrived looking tired, eyes sunken, lips dry. They asked him again about Amara's disappearance, but his answers came slower now, less firm. She left, he repeated. She brought shame, she left. But there was no conviction in his voice, only weariness. Later that evening, a child fell ill. Then 2 goats from neighboring compounds died suddenly. The well water turned cloudy. Some elders claimed it was coincidence. Others were not so sure. In this part of the land, stories of unrest spirits were not just bedtime tales, they were warnings passed down with serious weight. When the dead return, it is not always to haunt. Sometimes, it is to remind. Out of caution, a cleansing ritual was arranged. The villagers gathered by the river, lighting dried herbs and pouring palm wine into the soil. The local diviner, an old man nearly blind but sharp of tongue, was invited to perform the rite. When he threw cowrie shells onto the ground and studied their patterns, he frowned deeply. Someone has been buried wrongly, he said. Someone who was not ready to die. A shiver passed through the crowd. Women clutched their scarves tighter. Children were ushered indoors. Kato said nothing. But that night, when he returned home, he found the small clay pot where Amara kept her cooking salt shattered into pieces, though no one had entered the house. And in the darkness outside, just beyond the banana trees, he saw footprints in the soft soil. They led straight to his door and stopped there. The morning after the ritual, the village was unusually quiet. Even the birds seemed hesitant to sing. Word of the strange footprints at Kato's compound had spread, though he hadn't told anyone himself. But secrets had a way of leaking through walls, and in Nkokonjeru, walls had ears. Kato's health began to slip. At first, it was subtle, a tremor in his right hand, a dryness in his mouth that no water could quench. He grew pale, despite the sun, and spent more time seated beneath the mango tree, staring at nothing. The once proud builder no longer lifted his tools. The hammer that had shaped so many homes now lay forgotten in dust. By the third day, his vision had begun to blur. In bowls of soup, he saw eyes staring back at him. In puddles of water, he caught glimpses of Amara's face, not the living one he remembered, but the one he'd left beneath the forest floor, covered in soil and silence. Her mouth never moved, but her eyes seemed to ask, "Why, Kato? Why?" Then came Juma. The herbalist had returned to the village after weeks away, traveling to trade roots and barks in distant towns. When he arrived at the marketplace, he expected the usual greetings and handshakes. Instead, he was met with wide eyes and whispers. "She left with him," someone said behind his back. Kato's wife. Juma, confused, demanded to know more. He hadn't seen Amara since she'd visited him for herbs, bitter roots to calm Kato's cough and sleeplessness. She had come to him in concern, not secrecy. He had given her medicine and nothing more. Outraged, Juma stormed into the village square and called for the elders. He stood before them and spoke clearly, his voice unwavering. "I have been accused in silence, and I will answer in truth," he declared. "Amara came to me for herbs, not for pleasure, not for betrayal. She said her husband's temper was worsening, and she feared for his peace. That is why she came." The elders listened carefully. They had no reason to doubt Juma. He had healed their children, soothed their wives, and never once been caught in dishonor. Kato was summoned again. He arrived slowly, his clothes rumpled, his eyes bloodshot. He looked not like a man, but like a shadow of one. He sat before the council, breathing heavily, hands trembling. "Did you bury her?" one of the elders asked quietly. Kato did not answer. His lips moved, but no sound came. The oldest among them, a man named Baba Mukasa, stepped forward and placed a small gourd of water into Kato's hands. "Drink," he said. "And speak with the truth still wet on your tongue." Kato lifted the gourd to his lips but spilled it on his lap. His fingers had forgotten how to hold things. His body betrayed him, but his mind no longer could. "I thought she shamed me," he whispered at last. "The voices, the looks, they told me what my pride feared most. I followed her. I saw them speak. I saw them share something." "You did not ask," one elder said. "I asked, but I did not listen," Kato replied, his voice cracking. "I believed what suited my rage." Silence fell across the square. The council exchanged glances. One of them nodded toward the forest. "Show us." Later that afternoon, a group of men followed Kato deep into the woods. Past the tall grasses, through the dry paths, to the collapsed anthill wrapped in vines. He pointed to the earth. "Here," he said. They began to dig. The soil was dry, but not undisturbed. Beneath the first few layers, they found cloth, torn and damp. Then, deeper, they found the place where a body should have been. But the grave was empty. Only strands of hair remained, pressed into the dirt. No bones. No remains. Only absence. The men stepped back in horror. Some crossed themselves. Others looked toward the sky. Kato fell to his knees, staring at the hollow earth, now turned into a wound. One of the elders whispered, "She did not stay buried." That night, the shrine bells rang without hands. The wind spoke in strange tongues, and a soft humming could be heard near the well, the same song Amara used to sing while cooking. Kato did not return to the village square the next day. Nor the day after. Kato was never seen again after that day. Some believed he fled into the forest, haunted by what he had done. Others said the spirits had claimed him, the way the earth reclaims what is stolen. Days later, only his sandals were found, placed neatly beside the hollow grave where Amara had once been laid. The village elders declared the site sacred. They built a small shrine there, not in mourning, but in reverence. Not for the dead, but for justice. Women would visit it in silence, offering water, flowers, and whispered prayers. Some claimed they felt a breeze there, even on windless days. Others heard soft footsteps when they were alone. Amara was never found. But stories spread that she walked the river banks at dusk, not as a ghost, but as a warning. A protector of truth, of women wronged. Children were told, be honest. Be just. For the earth remembers what the mouth denies. And so, the tale of Kato and Amara lived on, not just as a story of betrayal and vengeance, but as a reminder that when justice is buried, it does not rest quietly.